"You can't park here." My voice ricocheted off the concrete walls of the condo parking lot, sharp and desperate, cutting through the humid evening air. It was 7:13 p.m. on a Friday, and I was running on fumes after a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. My scrubs were wrinkled, my feet ached, and all I could think about was sinking into my couch with a microwave dinner and some mindless TV. But as I pulled my beat-up Honda into the lot, my heart sank. There, sprawled across my assigned parking, spot number 42, were two cars, a shiny red SUV and a silver sedan, parked so carelessly they took up my spot and half of the one next to it. The audacity was almost artistic, like they were trying to set a new record for entitlement. Asterisk, I double-checked the faded sign bolted to the wall, reserved for Unit 12. That's me. Alex, a 27-year-old nurse who'd been living in this small, tightly run condo complex for 6 months. Parking here is a sacred commodity, like water in a desert. Our HOA is ruthless about rules. One assigned spot per unit. No exceptions, no excuses. Violators get fined, towed, or both. Everyone knows this, so who in their right mind would park like this? I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Asterisk, I scanned the lot, my eyes narrowing as I spotted movement near Unit 8. There she was, Karen, the HOA president, strutting out of her condo with her mom trailing behind, both weighed down with designer shopping bags. Karen's a legend in the worst way. Mid-40s, bob haircut sharper than her tongue, and a permanent scowl that could curdle milk. She's the kind of person who'd write you up for a cracked planter but leave her Christmas decorations up until July. Her mom, Linda, is her spitting image, same pinched expression. Same air of superiority, just with a few more wrinkles and a louder voice. They were laughing, oblivious to the chaos they'd caused, as they tossed their bags into the sedan's trunk. Asterisk, Karen, I called, trying to keep my voice steady despite the exhaustion clawing at me. Are these your cars in my spot? She glanced over, her lips curling into a smirk that screamed, I'm better than you. Oh, honey, she said, waving a manicured hand. We're just unloading. Chill out. Linda, adjusting her oversized sunglasses despite the sun having set an hour ago, chimed in. It's not a big deal, dear. We'll move soon. Her tone was patronizing, like I was a kid whining about a toy. Asterisk. I clenched my fists, feeling my pulse spike. Soon wasn't good enough. I'd been burned by Karen's promises before. She once borrowed my recycling bin for a week, claiming she'd return it soon, only for me to find it overflowing with her trash. I looked around the lot, hoping for a miracle. Every spot was taken. The guest parking was packed with cars from some neighbor's dinner party, and the nearest street parking was a 10-minute walk away, down a poorly lit road. After a double shift, I wasn't about to hike with my work bag and a pounding headache. Asterisk, Karen, I need my spot, I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. I've been working all day. She rolled her eyes, tossing her hair like a reality TV star. Find another spot, Alex, we're busy. Linda nodded, adding, young people are so impatient these days. The condescension dripped from her words, and I felt my blood boil. Right. Dealt with entitled patients all day, people demanding instant care while ignoring the chaos of an understaffed I wasn't about to let these two treat my parking spot like their personal loading zone. Asterisk, I took a deep breath, trying to channel the patience I use with difficult patience. Please move your cars. I don't want to escalate this. Karen laughed, a sharp mocking sound that echoed in the quiet lot. Escalate. Oh, please. You're not calling anyone. Just wait, okay? Linda smirked, muttering something about kids these days as they turned back toward Karen's condo. Dismissing me like I was invisible, that was the moment I snapped. I wasn't going to be their doormat. Not tonight. Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was a one-woman dictatorship. Since I moved into the complex 6 months ago, she'd made it her mission to remind everyone she was in charge. As HOA president, she wielded her clipboard like a scepter, patrolling the grounds for the tiniest infractions. Forgot to trim your hedge by an inch. Expect a $25 fine and a lecture about community standards. Left a welcome mat slightly askew? She'd slide a passive-aggressive note under your door. Yet when it came to her own behavior, the rules didn't apply. Her tacky flamingo lawn ornaments stayed up year-round, clashing with the complex's beige aesthetic, and her Christmas lights dangled from her balcony until June, long after the HOA's seasonal decor deadline. Nobody dared call her out. She had the board wrapped around her finger, or so she thought. Asterisk, my first run-in with her was just a week after I moved in. I'd left my bike on my balcony for a day while I fixed a flat tire. The next morning I found a $50 fine taped to my door for unauthorized outdoor storage. I tried to appeal, explaining it was temporary. But Karen shut me down at the HOA meeting, saying, "Rules are rules, Alex. We can't have clutter ruining the vibe." Meanwhile, her balcony was a jungle of wind chimes and plastic flowers, untouched by her own standards. It was clear she thrived on power, picking and choosing who to punish while giving herself a free pass. Asterisk Linda. Her mom was Karen's perfect accomplice. She visited every weekend, pulling into the lot like she owned it, her silver sedan hogging handicap spots or guest parking without a permit. Once she parked across 3 spaces during a community barbecue, leaving elderly residents circling for spots. When I politely asked her to move, she scoffed. "I'm only here for a few hours, dear. Don't make a fuss." Karen backed her up, snapping, "Mind your own business." The other neighbors grumbled but stayed quiet, too intimidated by Karen's HOA clout to push back. Asterisk another time. Linda blocked the dumpster for 2 days straight, forcing everyone to pile trash bags on the ground. I knocked on Karen's door to address it, and she had the gall to say, "We're dealing with family matters. The dumpster can wait." Linda, sipping wine on Karen's couch, added, "You young folks are so dramatic." The entitlement was staggering. They acted like the complex was their personal playground, and the rest of us were just tenants in their kingdom. Asterisk. But it wasn't just the big stuff. Karen had a knack for petty power plays. She'd accidentally take my packages from the mailroom, claiming they looked like hers, only to return them opened. She'd complain about my music being too loud through noise-canceling headphones while her late night karaoke sessions rattled the walls. Linda would back her up, telling anyone who'd listen that new residents don't respect the community. The hypocrisy was maddening, but most neighbors just shrugged it off, whispering, "That's just Karen." I wasn't so forgiving. I'd spent years dealing with entitled patients and the people demanding VIP treatment while I juggled life or death emergencies. Karen and Linda's antics felt like those patients, but worse, because they lived 50 feet from my front door. Asterisk that night in the parking lot. As I stood by their cars, I tried one last time to reason with them. "Karen, Linda, I'm exhausted. Please move your cars." Karen's smirk widened, like she was enjoying my frustration. "There's plenty of street parking, Alex. Don't be so dramatic." Linda nodded, her gold bracelets jangling. "You'll survive a little walk." I looked around. Every spot in the lot was taken. The guest parking was full, and the street was a dark 10-minute trek away. I wasn't about to let them steamroll me again. "Last warning," I said, my voice cold. "Move them or I'm calling the tow company." Karen laughed, a brittle sound that echoed in the quiet lot. "You call a tow truck?" "Please, you don't have the nerve," Linda added. "Go inside and calm down, dear." That was it. They'd pushed me too far, and I was ready to fight fire with fire. My blood was boiling as I stood in the dim parking lot, staring at Karen's red SUV and Linda's silver sedan, their taillights mocking me. I'd had enough of their entitlement, their smugness, their assumption that I'd just roll over. Like everyone else, no more. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling with a mix of rage and adrenaline, and dialed the number on the parking lot's towing sign. The line rang twice before a dispatcher picked up, her voice calm and professional. "Hi, this is Alex," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I've got 2 cars parked illegally in my assigned spot, number 42, at the Oakwood condo complex. They're blocking me from parking." I described the vehicle's red SUV, silver sedan, no permits. Parked like they owned the place. Asterisk the dispatcher, whose name tag I'd later learn was Maria, was sympathetic. "Sounds frustrating," she said. "We can have a truck there in about 20 minutes. You'll need to be present to verify you're the spot's owner, and bring proof like your lease or HOA agreement." I thanked her, my resolve hardening. "I'll be here," I said, hanging up. I glanced at Karen's condo, where lights glowed through the blinds. She and Linda were probably sipping wine, laughing about how they'd brushed me off. No idea what was coming. Asterisk, I leaned against my Honda, the cool metal grounding me as I waited. The lot was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional chirp of crickets. I pulled up the HOA handbook on my phone, scrolling to rule number 7. Unauthorized vehicles in assigned spots may be towed at the owner's expense. I read it twice, then triple-checked my lease, which clearly listed spot 42 as mine. I was in the clear, and knowing that felt like armor. Karen could try to spin this, but the rules were on my side. Asterisk, that's when Jake, my neighbor from Unit 14, poked his head out of his window. Jake's a chill graphic designer in his 30s, who'd also had his share of Karen's wrath she'd once. Fined him $75 for excessive noise after he played music at a reasonable volume during a barbecue. Yo, Alex, he whispered, his eyes wide with excitement. You're really towing Karen's cars? I nodded, a grim smile creeping onto my face. She left me no choice. Jake's grin widened. This is gonna be legendary. Mind if I film it? This needs to be documented. I shrugged. Go for it. He ducked back inside, reappearing with his phone and a tripod, setting up like he was directing a Hollywood blockbuster. This is going viral, he said, adjusting the angle. HOA Karen's about to get wrecked. Asterisk, while we waited, Jake filled me in on his own Karen horror stories, like the time she reported his dog for excessive barking when it yipped once during a delivery. She's untouchable, he said, shaking his head. Or she thinks she is. I nodded, my jaw tight. Not tonight. I glanced at my watch, 15 minutes until the tow truck. I paced a little, replaying Karen's smirk in my mind. Her, you don't have the nerve, echoing like a challenge. I wasn't just fighting for my parking spot anymore. This was about every fine, every snarky comment, every time she and Linda acted like they owned us all, asterisk to pass the time. I texted my coworker, Sarah, who'd heard all my Karen rants during our lunch breaks. Guess what? I'm towing Karen's car, I typed. She replied instantly, no way pics, or it didn't happen. I laughed, promising to send her Jake's video later. The lot felt like a stage, the tension building as the minutes ticked by. I half expected Karen to come out and move the cars before the truck arrived, but her condo stayed quiet, the blinds still. She was clueless. That made this moment sweeter. Asterisk headlights swept across the lot as the tow truck rumbled in, right on time. My heart raced. This was it. Jake gave me a thumbs up, his phone already recording. Showtime, he whispered. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Karen and Linda had no idea the storm they'd unleashed. The tow truck roared into the lot, its yellow lights slicing through the darkness like a beacon of justice. The low rumble of its engine felt like the prelude to a reckoning, and my pulse quickened with a mix of nerves and excitement. Mike, the driver, hopped out, a burly guy in a faded flannel with a no-nonsense demeanor that said he'd seen it all. He adjusted his cap, glanced at the offending cars, and nodded at me. You're the one who called? He asked, his voice gravelly but calm. I nodded, holding up my phone with my lease pulled up and pointing to the sign, reserved for Unit 12. That's my spot, I said, gesturing at Karen's red SUV and Linda's silver sedan, still sprawled arrogantly across the lines. Asterisk Mike walked over, inspecting the vehicles with a practiced eye. Yup, clear violation, he said, pulling out a clipboard to jot down the license plates. Got your proof of ownership? I handed him my phone, showing the lease, and pointed out the HOA rulebook's towing clause for good measure. Scanned it, nodded, and got to work, grabbing chains from the truck's bed. The metallic clank of the chains against the pavement was music to my ears, a sound that screamed consequences. Jake, stationed nearby with his phone on a tripod, gave me a thumbs up, his grin wide enough to light up the lot. This is gold, Alex, he whispered, zooming in as Mike hooked the chains to Karen's SUV first. Asterisk the noise must have carried, because the blinds in Karen's condo twitched, and seconds later the front door flew open. Karen stormed out, her face a mix of shock and fury, with Linda hot on her heels, clutching a wine glass like a weapon. "What the hell is this?" Karen shrieked, her voice so shrill it could have cracked glass. She marched toward the tow truck, her designer slippers slapping the pavement. "You can't tow my car? Stop right now." Linda, her gold bracelets jangling, added, "This is outrageous. Dadwa, we're calling the police." Her voice was theatrical, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Asterisk, I stood my ground, arms crossed, my exhaustion replaced by a surge of defiance. "You parked in my spot, Karen. I warned you to move." My voice was calm but firm, cutting through their hysterics. Karen's eyes narrowed, her face turning the same shade as her SUV. "You little brat. You think you can do this to me? I'm the HOA president." She jabbed a finger at me, stepping closer, but Mike didn't even flinch. He kept working, securing the chains with the precision of someone who'd dealt with 100 Karens. "Ma'am," he said, not looking up, "this is private property. HOA rules say I can tow unauthorized vehicles. Step back or I'll call the cops myself." Asterisk, Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Linda, undeterred, waved her phone dramatically. "This is elder abuse," she cried, as if being towed at 60 was a human rights violation. "I couldn't help it," I snorted. "Elder abuse? You parked in my spot, Linda?" Jake, still filming, was shaking with silent laughter, his phone capturing every second of their meltdown. Karen spun toward him, noticing the camera. "Turn that off," she snapped, but Jake just grinned. "Public property, Karen. I'm good." Asterisk, desperate, Karen tried a new tactic. She planted herself in front of the tow truck, arms spread like she was guarding a castle. "You're not taking my car," she yelled. Mike sighed, clearly used to this. "Ma'am, move or I'll have to report you for obstructing a tow." His tone was bored but firm, and Karen hesitated, her bravado cracking. Linda, meanwhile, was on her phone, yelling at someone, probably the HOA board or a lawyer, thinking her connections would save her. But the lot was private property. The rules were clear. Asterisk, Mike finished hooking up the SUV and moved to Linda's sedan, chains clanking louder now, each sound a nail in their entitled coffin. Karen's screams grew frantic. "You'll pay for this, Alex. You'll be fined. Evicted." I shrugged, unfazed. "Take it up with the HOA, Karen." "Oh wait, you're the president. Guess you'll have to fine yourself." Jake nearly dropped his phone, choking on laughter. The SUV was lifted onto the truck's flatbed and Mike started on the sedan, ignoring Karen's threats and Linda's fake sobs. The other neighbors, drawn by the noise, peeked out of their windows, some whispering, others grinning. This was the showdown they'd all been waiting. As the tow truck's taillights faded into the night, hauling away Karen's red SUV and Linda's silver sedan, I stood in the now empty parking lot, my heart still pounding from the showdown. I slid into my Honda, pulled into spot 42, and let out a long, triumphant breath. The spot was mine again, reclaimed after Karen and Linda's entitled stunt. Mike, the tow truck driver, had handed them a business card for the impound lot before driving off, his voice deadpan as he said, "It's $300 per car to get him back, plus storage fees if you wait. Good luck." Karen's face had twisted into a mask of fury, her hands clenched into fists, while Linda clutched the card like it was a ransom note, muttering about injustice. I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. This was the consequence they'd been dodging for too long. Asterisk, I locked my car and headed toward my condo, not before Karen spun toward me, her eyes blazing. "This isn't over, Alex," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger like a villain in a bad movie. "You'll regret this. I'll have you fined, evicted, sued." Her voice cracked with desperation, her usual smugness unraveling. Linda, still holding her wine glass, chimed in, "You're a disrespectful little punk. We'll see who wins this." I just shrugged, too tired to care about their threats. "Follow the rules next time, Karen," I said, turning away. "You too, Linda." Jake, still filming from his vantage point, let out a muffled snort, his phone capturing every second of their defeat. Asterisk as I reached my door. I glanced back to see Karen on her phone, probably calling her HOA cronies or some lawyer friend. while Linda paced the lot, ranting to no one in particular. The other neighbors, drawn by the commotion, were now openly watching from their balconies or windows, some whispering, others grinning. Mrs. Patel from Unit 10 gave me a discreet thumbs up, her eyes sparkling with approval. She'd once gotten a $100 fine from Karen for unauthorized planter colors, so she was Team Alex all the way. Asterisk, the next morning, I woke to a flood of texts from neighbors. "You really did it," read one from Jake, followed by a link to the video he'd posted on X. I clicked it.
Nice.
And my jaw dropped. The clip already had thousands of views, with comments like HOA Karen got owned,
Right.
injustice served, flooding in. Jake had edited it perfectly, zooming in on Karen's meltdown and Linda's dramatic elder abuse claim, complete with captions for maximum effect. "You're a legend," he texted, along with a string of fist bump emojis. My coworker Sarah, who I'd texted during the wait for the tow truck, sent a string of clapping emojis. "This is the best thing I've seen all year," asterisk by Monday. The fallout was in full swing. Karen tried to retaliate, of course. She called an emergency HOA meeting, claiming I'd violated community harmony by towing her cars. I showed up, armed with my lease, the HOA rulebook, and a screenshot of rule number 7. The board, mostly older residents, who'd grown tired of Karen's reign, listened as I laid out the facts. Karen and Linda parked illegally. I warned them, and the tow was by the book. Karen tried to spin it, claiming I'd targeted her out of spite, but the board wasn't buying it. One member, Mr. Chen, even pointed out Karen's history of bending rules for herself. "You can't fine someone for enforcing the rules you ignore," he said, his voice calm but cutting. The room erupted in murmurs, and Karen's face turned beet red. The fine was dismissed. I walked out feeling like I'd won a courtroom drama. Asterisk, the video's virality only added fuel to the fire. By midweek, it had hit tens of thousands of views, with ex-users sharing their own HOA horror stories in the comments. "This is why I'll never live in an HOA," one wrote. Another said, "Give Alex a medal." The attention seemed to break. Karen neighbors reported seeing her avoid the parking lot entirely, opting to park on the street to dodge further embarrassment. Linda's visits became less frequent, and when she did show up, she parked in guest spots like a model citizen. Asterisk, a week later. The ultimate plot twist hit. A for sale sign appeared outside Karen's condo. Word around the complex was that she couldn't handle the humiliation, neighbors whispering, the board questioning her leadership, and the X video turning her into a meme. Jake overheard her telling Linda she was done with this ungrateful community. Months she'd moved out, her reign of terror over. The new HOA president, Mrs. Patel, immediately relaxed some of the pettier rules. The complex felt lighter, like a storm cloud had lifted. Asterisk now. Park in spot 42 without a hitch, and the lot's never been more orderly. Neighbors greet me with smiles, some calling me the tow truck hero. Jake's video still gets views, and every so often, I get a text from a friend saying it popped up on their feed. The moral: don't mess with someone's parking spot, especially when they've got the HOA rules and a tow truck on speed dial.